The Giants being linked to Miles Sanders is not just another free agency rumor. It is a warning about Jaxson Dart's support system. Not a signing, not a done deal, not a victory lap. A warning. Because when a former Eagles playmaker gets floated as a possible Giants fit, the real story is not rivalry drama. The real story is function. Can the Giants make life easier for Dart right now? Or are Joe Schoen and John Harbaugh still searching for a veteran skill position piece because this offense is not complete? Nobody is seeing the bigger pattern clearly enough. The Giants are not just being mentioned around one former NFC East player. They are being pulled into a wider conversation about value, roles, and roster pressure. And when you connect Sanders with the Kayvon Thibodeaux trade value chatter, the message gets loud. Big Blue is still moving. Let's be honest about where things stand. The holes are clear, and this is where it gets real. The Giants have a support problem around Jaxson Dart. Dart is the current starting quarterback, and a starting quarterback cannot develop inside an offense that asks him to solve everything alone. If the running game is inconsistent, Dart pays. If the backs cannot help control tempo, Dart pays. If the offense has no reliable veteran presence when the game gets ugly, Dart pays. That is the pressure. That phrase matters because offensive help is not just about fantasy stats. It is about keeping the quarterback out of survival mode. The Giants also have a role problem. They can have players in the building and still lack the right blend. They can have youth and still lack trust. They can have potential and still lack a steady hand when the offense needs a simple answer. That is dangerous. Because the NFC East does not wait for young offenses to mature. It attacks uncertainty. It punishes hesitation. It forces quarterbacks to play faster than they want to play. The Giants cannot ask Dart to be the face of the reset while surrounding him with half-defined roles. They need a backfield that makes sense. They need receivers and backs who reduce chaos. They need veterans who understand pressure without needing the entire offense built around them. But there is a trap here too. A former Eagles name brings rivalry heat, easy headlines, and instant reaction. That does not automatically make it good roster building. If the Giants chase Miles Sanders just because people recognize the name, that is a mistake. If they consider him because he fills a defined role, that is different. The Giants need clarity, not noise. And that brings us to the former Eagles playmaker now sitting in the middle of this offensive debate. The headline is that former Eagles running back Miles Sanders has been floated as a possible fit for the New York Giants. Let me say this clearly. This is not a confirmed signing. This is not a report that Sanders is already headed to East Rutherford. This is a free agency fit story, a roster support story, a question about whether the Giants should look inside the NFC East for practical offensive help. That overlay matters because Giants fans need the rumor framed correctly. The tension is not whether the paperwork is done. It is not. The tension is whether the idea makes football sense. And I think it deserves a real conversation. Sanders matters because he is a veteran skill position player with NFC East familiarity. That does not make him a savior. It does not make him the answer to every offensive issue. But it does make him relevant. A player who has lived in this division understands the tone, the stadiums, the pressure, the physicality, the weekly emotional grind of Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders football. That matters. Not enough to guarantee a roster spot. Enough to study the fit. Here is the part nobody is talking about. The Giants do not need every veteran addition to be spectacular. Sometimes the smart move is smaller. A back who can stabilize a role. A player who can handle a defined workload. A veteran who gives Dart one more practical answer when the offense gets tight. That is the real question with Sanders. What is the role? If the role is vague, I am out. If the role is former Eagles star, big name, easy headline, I am out. But if the role is clear, rotational back, pass game support, veteran insurance, camp competition, then I am listening. Because this cannot be about nostalgia. It cannot be about stealing a name from a division rival. It cannot be about pretending one veteran fixes everything. It has to be about Dart. Does Miles Sanders make Jaxson Dart's life easier? Does he help the Giants survive ugly downs? Does he raise the floor without blocking the ceiling? That is the line. And this is where John Harbaugh's identity matters. Harbaugh is not here to build a soft offense that wins press conferences. He is here to build a team that can function when the game gets uncomfortable. A veteran back can fit that mission, but only if the staff knows exactly why he is there. The Giants should not collect familiar names. They should collect useful roles. And when you see how Kayvon Thibodeaux's value is being discussed on the other side of the ball, this bigger roster philosophy starts to click. The Sanders story is about offense, but the Kayvon Thibodeaux chatter shows the same front office problem from the other side. Kayvon Thibodeaux has received an updated trade value after the NFL draft. That matters because it shows the Giants are not only being discussed through free agency fits. They are being discussed through value. Who is worth keeping? Who is worth shopping? Who is worth adding? Who fits the long-term vision? That is where it connects to the bigger picture. Miles Sanders is an offensive value question. Kayvon Thibodeaux is a defensive value question. Different players, different stakes, same philosophy. Joe Schoen and John Harbaugh have to define what every player is worth to the next version of the New York Football Giants. That does not mean Kayvon is being traded. That does not mean Sanders is being signed. It means the roster is still being evaluated. And honestly, that is how it should be. The Giants cannot afford lazy assumptions. They cannot assume a veteran addition helps just because the name is recognizable. They cannot assume a young defender is untouchable just because fans like him. They cannot assume the offense is complete because the depth chart has enough bodies. Everything has to be measured. Role, value, fit, timing, cost, impact on Dart, impact on Harbaugh's identity. That is mature team building. But it is uncomfortable for fans because it means the roster is not sentimental anymore. It means every rumor is really asking a deeper question. What are the Giants trying to become? If Sanders is a clean fit, consider him. If Kayvon is part of the defensive foundation, define that publicly through action. If either conversation becomes noise, ignore it. That is the balance. And when the Seahawks enter the Kayvon conversation, it proves the Giants roster is not being debated in a vacuum. The Seahawks-related Kayvon Thibodeaux item adds another layer to the same story. Seattle received a blunt message involving a potential trade for the Giants' edge rusher. Again, careful language matters. Potential trade. Message. Speculation. Not a confirmed move. That overlay matters because the point is not that Kayvon is gone. The point is that Giants players are showing up in market conversations around the league. And that circles right back to Miles Sanders. While other teams are being discussed around Giants' defensive talent, New York is being discussed around outside offensive help. That is roster fluidity. That is the proof. The Giants are still being shaped from both directions. Other teams may look at their players. The Giants may look at available veterans. The front office has to decide what helps the plan and what distracts from it. That is why the Sanders rumor cannot be dismissed as just another name. A former Eagles back possibly fitting the Giants is part of a larger question. How do you support Dart while the roster is still moving? If the defense is still being debated, the offense cannot be passive. If the quarterback is the center of the rebuild, the support structure has to be treated like a priority. And if a veteran offensive player can make the weekly operation cleaner, the Giants should at least study it. That does not mean chasing every old rival. It means refusing to sit still. Big Blue is not finished. The Sanders link proves the offense is still under review. The Kayvon chatter proves the defense is still being valued. Together, they show a franchise still deciding what belongs in the next version. Hot take. The Giants should consider Miles Sanders, but only if he accepts a specific support role for Jaxson Dart. And I am not backing down from that. That phrase matters because the quarterback is the filter for everything. My prediction is specific. The Giants will seriously explore at least one more veteran skill position addition before training camp fully settles. That number matters because one steady veteran can change the feel of an offense, not by becoming the star, by making the offense less chaotic. If I am wrong, I will come back to this video and own it. But I do not think I am wrong. Here is the divisive part. I would rather give Dart one proven veteran support piece than protect every young player from competition. That is not anti-youth. That is pro-quarterback. Young players should earn roles. Veterans should earn roles too. But Dart cannot be the one paying for everybody else's learning curve. That is the standard. Big Blue cannot build around Jaxson Dart with theory alone. The support has to be real. That is the identity statement. Miles Sanders being linked to the Giants should make fans debate. Good. That means the roster is still alive. The Giants have to decide what matters most. Youth, veteran stability, NFC East familiarity, role clarity. And if the answer is a former Eagles back who helps Dart right now, Schoen has to study it. So Giants fans, pick a side. Would you bring Miles Sanders in from the Eagles side of the rivalry? Or is that the wrong kind of veteran shortcut? And be honest, do you trust the current Giants offensive support group enough right now? If you are riding with the G-men through every free agency rumor, every trade value debate, and every Harbaugh roster decision, you know where that subscribe button is. This offense has to grow up fast. Go Big Blue.